Hey everybody, welcome to TV Recap. I'm Lance and this is the recap for Westworld Season 1, Episode 3, The Stray. Now I'm trying a different format for this week's video, focusing less on the screen caps from the episode to try and get this video out to you guys quicker. Let me know if you want me to go back to the more detailed screen caps and I will abide. Now, on to the actual episode. This week's episode was a bit slower, but we got a lot more detail into the plot of the hosts and how they are remembering their former lives, with a couple little bits involving Ford's new storyline. Now, before I get to my thoughts on the main plot, I want to mention that I am very happy we got a little more detail about the park rules. We now know that guests can get hit by the bolts from the host, although with far less damage than a real gunshot. We find out that Bernard's continued interviews with the updated host has drawn attention from the operations department, and that Bernard's coworker Elsie is still looking for a pattern in the aberrant behavior of those hosts. Now, ultimately, she notices that the affected hosts all mention the name Arnold in some way or another. Now, when Bernard follows up on this with Ford, we find out Arnold was Ford's partner in building the original host. Now, it turns out that Arnold seemingly wanted the host to be more than just machines and was ultimately killed in an accident. We find out that the original programming phrases for the host were actually from Arnold, which could be the source of the "violent delights have violent ends" trigger phrase from last week. Now, I'm thinking that this trigger phrase is some sort of backdoor still built into the host from Arnold's time, and that the maze we heard about last week is the destination for these hosts after hearing the phrase. Now, unfortunately for us, the stray mentioned in the episode's title that had been carving constellations into wood objects ends up as a dead end due to a severe case of rock to the head. Now, speaking about Ford, we found out that he has personally claimed a large swath of the park for his new storyline, throwing a lot of the other plot lines out of whack. We get our first hint at the story of this new plot line when Ford creates and uploads Teddy's backstory to him, which involves a Civil War officer named Wyatt terrorizing the park. Now, I found it interesting that we saw such a callous attitude about the host from Ford this week. That turn definitely makes me question my previous theory about Ford being some sort of redeemer or savior for these hosts. Now, that may just be a cover to the rest of the employees, but I did get the sense that he enjoyed letting Teddy down about never being able to be with Dolores, and he seemingly has programmed the new host in the storyline to not respond to the gunshots of other hosts. And now that we've made the full loop on the story, let's end with Dolores. We see that Bernard continues to have probing conversations with Dolores in secret, and he's been giving her books to read that focus on change and possibly false worlds. Alice in Wonderland, for example. Now, we get the sense that Bernard knows Dolores is developing some sort of a personality beyond her programming, and even though he acknowledges that he should reset her memory, he chooses not to. Now, this culminates in Dolores being able to break through her non-weapons authorization and fire a gun at a bandit host. Now, shortly afterwards, Dolores runs away and ends up collapsing, presumably due to the mental strain of breaking her programming and acting of her own free will. Now, to wrap up, I think the big question from this week is whether or not Dolores lies in Bernard in their conversations. When Bernard asks if she's mentioned their conversations to anyone else, her only answer is simply, "You told me not to." Now, on the surface, that looks and sounds fine, but it's actually not an answer yes or no. I do think Dolores has developed the ability to lie to Bernard, but I'm not sure he realizes that yet, and I'm really looking forward to see where this goes next week. Alright, so what did you guys think of Episode 3? What is Ford actually up to? How will Maeve respond to her memories of waking up in the lab? And how do you think Teddy will die in Episode 4? So many possibilities. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week for more Westworld.